Intern fatigue isn't just drowsiness, it's a change in the state of matter. The air in Harborview's corridors becomes thick as syrup, sounds turn muffled and distant, and time flows in irregular jerks. At first, I blamed these jerks on sleep deprivation until the Deja Vu started. It wasn't a vague feeling of already seen, it was crystalline, inexorable. I was standing by the window in the residence lounge, looking at the sycamore tree in the courtyard, when I felt a familiar, thin, as a razor blade jab in my temple, followed by a metallic taste on my tongue, as if I'd licked a battery, and I didn't think, knew. A leaf was about to fall from a branch, not just any, the one on the far left, with a torn edge like the map of Australia. It would fall, make 2 rotations in the air, and land point first in a crack in the asphalt. That's exactly what happened. I froze, clutching a cooling mug in my hand. Coincidence, a hallucination from overwork. A brain deprived of normal REM sleep was building short bridges between random events. I repeated this to myself like a mantra, but the next day, when Nurse Linda handed me a folder with lab results, the jab and the metallic taste returned, and I, before she even opened her mouth, mentally spoke the words with her. Looks like 207's creatinine is up again, might need a nephrology consult. The words matched perfectly. This was no longer a glitch, it was a signal. My own consciousness had begun broadcasting the immediate future to me with pinpoint accuracy. Broken causality became my new reality. I experienced the effect, the knowledge, a few seconds before its cause. It turned all rational order inside out. I started a secret journal, recorded episodes, searched for a trigger, and I found it. Not a place, not a time of day, a patient, or rather, one patient, room 314, Jane Doe. That's how the system listed the woman, in a vegetative state, lying there for 10 years. I'd never entered her room, never seen her chart, but every single one of my Deja Vu episodes happened when I was within 20 meters of her room, in the residence lounge opposite, in the hallway, at the nurse's station, as if her room was the epicenter of a quiet, invisible earthquake, and I was the only seismograph. My patient snapped. I pulled up her history in the digital archive. 10 years in a coma after a car accident, and then, dry, but damning. Participation in blind study, projection of short-term mnemonic patterns, protocol echo, 2013 to 2014, mnemonic patterns, memories. I googled it, nothing, no articles, no mentions, as if the study had evaporated. But once, during a particularly strong episode, I predicted exactly how the lead in my pencil would snap. I staggered into room 314. The air smelled of sterility and quiet death. She lay motionless, hooked to machines. The EEG monitor drew the slow, sleepy waves of her mindless brain, and then it happened, a sharp jab in the temple, the taste of iron, and at that very moment, on her monitor, among the monotonous lines, a sharp, recognizable sawtooth pattern flared and died, a pattern of fast beta waves. My pattern, the one they record when I'm solving a complex problem, the electrical imprint of my momentary stress. That night, I didn't sleep. Logic, my last bastion, was crumbling. I stole the keycard to the MRI room and scheduled myself for an urgent migraine workup. When the scans of my head came up on the screen, I looked at them not as a doctor, but as a defendant at a sentencing. There, deep in my right temporal lobe, where memory and the sense of time reside, was a tiny scar, not from trauma, not from a stroke, a microscopic, intricate branching, like a frost pattern on glass. I'd seen such a pattern only once, on old, scanned film images in Jane Doe's file. The description read: persistent neural scar of unclear etiology, likely a consequence of experimental intervention. I had an unsolvable riddle in my head. How? I never participated in any studies. 10 years ago, I was a freshman in another state, but the imprint was identical, as if someone's scalpel, physical or not, had made the same incision on 2 different brains, creating a channel, a bridge. I rushed back to the archive to find those film images. The proof, Jane Doe's folder was in the same place, but the section on studies was empty, clean. No mention of protocol echo, no images of the scar, just the dry lines about the car accident and coma. History had corrected itself, erased the evidence. I'm writing this from the same residence lounge. The Deja Vu continues. It has become part of my landscape, like the hum of the ventilation, but I'm no longer afraid of the sensation itself. I'm afraid of its content, because if this connection, this damned bridge, allows me to see 3 seconds ahead, then what is it transmitting the other way? What is her 10-year coma projecting into my consciousness? And most importantly, What will happen when the prediction stops being about falling leaves and broken pencils? I now await with horror not the jab in my temple, I await the moment when the metallic taste fills my mouth, and I will know something terrible, an accident with a patient, an elevator crash, a fire, or something directly concerning me, and the most terrifying thing, I instinctively understand I won't be able to change it, because in this distorted causality, the effect, my knowledge, is already part of an unbreakable chain. It guarantees the event will happen. I've become a prisoner of a few seconds of the future, which seems already written somewhere in the depths of my own, mutilated brain, and I can't escape. I can only wait for my personal warning to finally show me something that broke her, and I feel with dread that this day is approaching, with every metallic taste, with every jab in the temple. I noticed the first crack by the elevator. The neighbor from upstairs, Sarah, always talks on the phone at that time. Walking her dachshund, I stepped out, nodded, and my breath caught. She was wearing a blue velvet robe. My brain stuttered, a clear, distinct memory. Yesterday, at exactly this time, she stood right here in a red robe with little dragons. I'd even noted to myself how bold it was. I remembered the shade, a scarlet, slightly faded on the shoulders, and now, blue, deep indigo. I chalked it up to exhaustion, freelancing, deadlines, sleepless nights at my laptop in my Kitsilano studio, but the next day, the cracks began to spiderweb. The truck that stalled under my window every morning at 8:15 was an Isuzu, not a Ford. The scratch on the park staircase railing, I ran my finger over every day, gone. The wood smooth as glass. The coffee stain on my favorite mug had shifted a centimeter to the left. This wasn't déjà vu in the usual sense, this was knowledge. I didn't feel a vague familiarity. I remembered the previous version of the day with photographic accuracy, and reality was quietly, suddenly swapping out the pixels. The panic started quietly, like mold growing behind a cupboard. I started a journal, just a computer document titled Glitches. I logged every discrepancy. April 23rd, barista Jenny said, "Have a good day," instead of, "Have a great one." The poster for the exhibit isn't by the library entrance. Mr. Chen's dog is a pug, not a corgi. After a week, I ran an analysis. The unsolvable riddle took on structure. All the discrepancies fell within a single time frame. From 2 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. every Tuesday, as if during those 90 minutes, reality was unstable, and its edits bled out, affecting my memories of the entire day. But the most terrifying part was something else. Reviewing my calendars and timelines, I discovered with horror that broken causality worked here, too. During those exact hours, I always had a gap. I couldn't remember what I was doing. My schedule said working on the article or Zoom meeting, but there were no specific memories, no drafts, no call logs. An hour and a half of pure, blank white noise in my memory. My friend Leo worked for the city. I called him, my voice shaking. My bike got stolen, right from the building entrance. Can you look at the footage from the camera at our intersection? Tuesday, about 2 days ago. He sent a link. I scrolled to 2 p.m. on Tuesday. The camera showed a view of my building entrance and the street. I sat, not breathing, expecting to see a thief. At 2:05 p.m., the door opened, and I walked out. My clothes, a gray hoodie, dark jeans, a slightly faster pace than usual. I didn't look back. Didn't check the mail. I walked out and headed toward a silver Honda hatchback parked a little further down, about 10 years old. I got into the passenger seat. The car drove off, and in the last frame, before it left view, I saw my own face flash in the window. It was calm, blank, completely detached, a face I'd never seen on myself. This was the silent witness, irrefutable, digital proof that I wasn't living just one life, that every Tuesday at 2:05 p.m., someone or something picks me up, or that I pick myself up, a different version of me. I found that Honda 3 days later. It was parked in a multi-level lot by the Metrotown Mall, dusty, with expired inspection stickers. The door was unlocked. Inside, it smelled of old coffee, dust, and something else, ozone, like after a thunderstorm. In the glove compartment, under maps and bills, lay a simple black softcover notebook. I opened it, and my world finally, completely collapsed. The handwriting was mine, unequivocally, the same loops, the same slant, the same way of crossing out mistakes. But the content: first page. Cycle 1, discrepancies. 0. Stable, memory clear, cycle 5, introduced, red robe, pattern, accepted, cycle 8, testing truck route alteration, effect minimal, cycle 12, subject has begun looking out the window more, first subconscious doubt recorded, and the last entry, dated last week. Cycle 13, subject has begun noticing, kept a journal, self-observation system activated, threat level elevated, time to conclude, I sat in a not mine car and shook. This wasn't a diary of observations about me, this was a report on a cyclical experiment I was conducting on myself, or not me, some part of me that wasn't in my memory. I burned the notebook in a public restroom sink. Since then, the Deja Vu stopped, the discrepancies vanished, Sarah went back to the red road. The truck was a Ford again, life returned to a smooth, seamless flow, but that is the greatest horror. The question that always haunted me was, what is happening? Now I know the answer, and I ask a new one that freezes my blood. For what purpose? What haunts me now isn't Deja Vu, it's the feeling that my life is just one of many versions, cycle 14, or is it 15 already? That all my thoughts, fears, this very text, it's all part of a protocol that someone, me, is calmly observing and logging in a new notebook, in a new car, in a new parking lot. I catch myself sitting by the window every Tuesday from 2 to 3:30 p.m., watching the street, waiting to see if the silver Honda will appear, waiting to see if I'll spot myself walking out of the building with that same empty face, getting in, and driving off to another session. I'm not afraid the experiment will continue. I'm afraid that the curator, that other me, or whatever sits inside me, will deem this cycle a failure and conclude it not by stopping the Deja Vu, but with something far more final, to start a clean, glitch-free cycle 1 from scratch. Sophie and I always thought our story was perfect, not some saccharine Hallmark card, but something that fit, like a key in a lock. We met at the Denver Art Museum's Impressionist exhibit, both reaching for the same Monet, haystacks, glitch, I know, but it was ours. We had coffee, then wine, married a year later, bought a house in Highland. Our love was a warm, solid foundation, the bedrock we built our life on, until the bedrock cracked. It happened over dinner at Pietro's. We were celebrating a small win of Sophie's at work. She was talking, and I was watching the candlelight dance in her eyes, when suddenly her face froze. Don't laugh, she said, rubbing her temples. I'm having the most intense Deja Vu right now. It's like we've already sat here, and you gave the same toast, and she glanced over my shoulder, and the waiter at that table just spilled water on that woman's lap. An icy shiver traced my spine. Before I could speak, our own waiter, weaving through with a tray of glasses, caught his foot on a chair leg. A glass of ice water arced through the air and emptied itself onto the lap of the young woman at the table opposite. The sound, the splash, the gasp, the apologies, matched, millisecond for millisecond, the memory of that sound which had flashed in my mind a second before it happened. I looked at Sophie, she was looking at me, her eyes held not fear, but complete, utter bewilderment, just like mine. I did too, I choked out. Just now, exactly that. That was the first time our Deja Vu went synced, a shared hallucination for two. We forced ourselves to laugh it off, but at home, over tea, we started comparing notes, and we discovered these episodes had been haunting us separately for months. We just hadn't said anything, afraid the other would think we were losing it. Sophie remembered us arguing about the bedroom wallpaper color before we ever bought it. I knew our toaster would break on a Thursday. While I was slicing a baguette, small things, but there were too many of them. We sat down and started writing them out, connecting the dots, and then a pattern emerged that made us physically sick. The episodes weren't tied to the future, but to the past, to our first year together, to specific places. The cafe on 16th Street, our walking route in Chatfield Park, the Macy's Cinema, our shared memory, our most precious capital, turned out to be mined with false recollections. Then things that never happened at all began to surface. Remember our first date at the Cherry Creek? Sophie asked one evening, sorting through old photos. I was just thinking, I have this feeling someone else was there. Jason, maybe. Jason was our mutual friend, the fun one, the life of the party. We'd met him at a birthday party a full year after that first date. Impossible, I said with certainty. It was just us. You ordered the steak, I had the seafood pasta we were talking about, and then my internal monologue stalled. An image surfaced, Jason, sitting at our table with a wine glass. He was saying something, cracking a joke, and we were laughing, a clear, vivid, full-color snapshot, one that shouldn't exist, the unsolvable riddle crystallized. How can two different people share the same false memory involving the same third person? We tore through every box and we found the photo, from that first date. My arm is around Sophie, we're squinting in the sun, the remains of our meal on the table, and there, in the background, outside the restaurant's large window, leaning against a lamppost, is Jason. He's out of focus, but his face is unmistakable, and he's not looking away, he's looking directly at us, through the glass, and he's smiling, not a friendly, welcoming smile, the smile of an observer pleased with an experiment's progress. We were silent the whole evening, our hands were ice cold. The next day, we called Jason and asked to meet, not at a bar, but at our house. He came in with his usual grin, but it slipped from his face when he saw our pallor and that photograph lying on the coffee table between us like evidence. He was quiet for a long time, staring at the floor, then he sighed. You weren't supposed to find out. The system glitched, a side effect, and he told us everything. He wasn't a friend we'd spontaneously made, he was a private psychologist, a specialist in social engineering, had been hired by our parents jointly, my mother, obsessed with stability after my chaotic 20s, and her father, a pragmatist who wanted a vetted and safe partner for his daughter. They funded a project called Compatibility. Jason, then Dr. Wright, had studied us individually for months, our tastes, fears, dreams, traumas. He engineered our chance meeting at the museum. He was the mutual friend who supposedly wanted to introduce us but never showed. He crafted the perfect script for our early dates, where every detail, from conversation topics to wine selection, was designed to create maximum resonance. Then came stabilization, joint, yet separate, hypnotic sessions disguised as stress relief relaxation sessions, which we were gently steered toward. In these sessions, he implanted anchors, positive, vivid memories of our time together, to strengthen the bond, to create a sense of destiny, of deep understanding. The Deja Vu, he explained, was a glitch in these anchors. They'd begun leaking into reality as anticipatory memories. It was the most sophisticated, toxic form of help imaginable. Parents who wanted us happy, a professional doing flawless work, all for our own good, to create the perfect couple. Jason left. We remained in the living room of our beautiful Highland home. The silence was deafening. Before, the horror had been in the Deja Vu, in the cracks in reality. Now it took a different, unbearable form. A different question loomed between us, massive and unanswerable. We had sought the why of the Deja Vu, we had found it, and now the true horror lay in the question: which of our feelings are real? When I look at Sophie, I see the woman I love. I remember my heart stopping when she laughed, the ache in my soul when she was hurting. That felt real. But how do I know? From my own, untainted heart. Or were those feelings carefully planted and cultivated in the laboratory of someone else's design, like a perfect, sterile hybrid? She looks at me, and I see the same chilling question in her eyes. We hug. It's our habit, our ritual of comfort. But now, in that touch, there's an element of testing. Is this real? What about this kiss? That argument last month, was that us, or a programmed conflict staged to strengthen bonds? We haven't split up, too much shared history, but the foundation is no longer a foundation, it's a playing field, and we don't know who the real players are. We're not afraid of eyes watching us from outside the window, we're afraid to look into each other's eyes and ask the question out loud, the answer to which might destroy everything we have. And the true horror is that we will never know the truth, because even if our feelings are genuine, the shadow of doubt sown by that help will grow between us forever, quiet and inexorable, like our very own private monster.